welcome Kleber Mendoça Filho. I want to begin by asking you about the beginning of this project. I think that you had in mind Moura as the lead actor for this main role. I wonder why you chose him, and also if there's anything specific about him that had shaped the character and also the story.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I specifically wrote the script for Wagner. I met him many years ago. I was a film critic at the time. He had a film in Cannes. That's our first meeting, and I really like him as an actor, and I like him as a person. The combination of those two things means a lot to me, and we became friends over the years, and there was this idea that we should develop something together, and I sat down to specifically write the script, thinking I had mapped out the films he had done, the television he had done, the theater he had done. I thought maybe I want him to do something I haven't seen him do yet. And he has a very good range, dramatic range. But above all, it's also the pleasure of working with someone I really like, and that's what I've been doing in my previous films. And we had a great time making the film. We're very good friends. We're stronger friends even today, and we're very much close and traveling with the film all the time. And he's about to come through that door right now. Just said some nasty things about you.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep. That's the truth. and put the alarm clock and woke up and turned it off and slept again. I'm so sorry.
Well, we're happy you're here. You have been late for just a few seconds, and we were talking happily about you.
That's great. Thank you.
So, Kleber was telling me about how you became part of the beginning of this film project, that he had always wanted to work with you. And I'd like to ask you, you directed a film in 2019 yourself, Marighella, which is about the resistance fighter Carlos Marighella, also during the military dictatorship. And so I wonder if the two of you talked about presenting that era on screen, because both of you have done a lot of work doing research, and coincidentally, you both have a journalism background.
Yes.
So I wonder if you have things in common in terms of how you approach history and research.
I think we have a lot in common. I'll have to go back in time a little bit just to tell you how. Have you told him how we met? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we met in Cannes.
We met in Cannes 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Kleber was a critic back then. Very mean one. Wrote very bad reviews of some films that I've done. But we met there, we hit it off somehow, no resentments and hard feelings. But in 2012, I saw his first film, Neighbours. And I thought that I had seen one of the greatest Brazilian films ever, deeply grounded in the tradition of Brazilian political films. And I became obsessed with working with him. And it kind of started to have a relationship and talking, meeting up in film festivals and calling each other and talking to each other. But what really put us together in this film, and he actually offered me a role in Bacurau, and I couldn't do it because I was directing Marighella. Back then, Kleber went to the set, visited me in Marighella, which was great. He was in the set, no pressure. He was there, watching me directing. And so we became friends, but what put us together was Brazil, was politics, was Brazil in what Brazil was from 2018 to 2022. We were both very vocal against the former president of Brazil, who is now in jail, for attempting against Brazilian democracy. But I think that this film is sort of like, was born from our shared perplexity over what was going on in Brazil back then. Someone that was trying to bring back the values of the dictatorship to Brazil in the 21st century. And so I had directed a film that took place during the dictatorship. There were other films, you must have seen I'm Still Here, another Brazilian film that beautiful film. We have been visiting that time in the Brazilian, the history of Brazilian cinema, because we have to. And this film, The Secret Agent, is a film also about memory, or the lack of memory, something that we need to talk about, especially in Brazil. We have an amnesia problem in Brazil, a self-inflicted amnesia problem in that country. And I'm very happy to say, I'm sorry, I just woke up, I'm talking. And I'm very happy to say that we are finally getting even with that problem, like I said, when we finally sent to jail in our country military people and other people that attempted against democracy in Brazil. And it's a very beautiful coincidence that we are releasing this film about memory in that particular moment of the Brazilian history. It's always fascinating, to me it's always fascinating that a film, or any art form actually, is always an encounter between what an artist wants to say with a very particular audience that sees a film in a very particular moment, in a very particular place. The film, had we released The Secret Agent, Marighella, my film, the film you just mentioned, was released under Bolsonaro. And he censored the film. The film was released in Berlin in 2019, and I could only release the film in Brazil in 2021. We fought a lot to release the film there in Brazil. But it's interesting, have we released this film now, the same film would have had been seen by the audience with another point of view, or political point of view, or social point of view. And I think it's beautiful that The Secret Agent is being released in Brazil right now, in a moment that we are finally getting even with our memory problem.
And how
Thank you, goodbye.
One of the most striking things about the film is how every character feels like protagonists of their own expanded story. No matter how little screen time they have. For example, Donna Sebastiana is an undeniable highlight. Amando's wife, she stands out through her sharp and vigilant gaze. Her father, the projectionist, I think he has an unforgettable and distinctive walk. And there are other memorable characters as well. For example, the couple from Angola, the police chief and his underlings, the two hitmen from the south, and even the much cheaper hitman from Recife.
The subcontract.
Yeah. Can you talk about the importance of these smaller characters and how you crafted them to leave such a lasting impression?
Well, thank you very much for that reaction to these characters. I love each and every one of them. I wrote them. I think it's inevitable that at some point you will draw from life, people you might have met, people I love, people I used to know, but that's only part of the story, because the second part of the story is finding the actors and casting people. And I think filmmaking is a lot of work. Writing is probably the hardest part of the whole process. It's painful, but finding the cast is probably the most beautiful part of the process, because that's when the film becomes alive. And it's very important that when you find someone, he or she might not be exactly what you wrote, but it's probably better. She is more interesting than probably what I wrote. Or he is probably richer and more fascinating. And we had this amazing collection of faces and bodies and personalities, and I love them. There's one character, well, they're all very dear to me, but Alexandre, the projectionist, is very dear to me because my previous film is called Pictures of Ghosts. It's a film essay. It's very much. Oh, thank you very much. And I made a very good friend in the late 80s when I was still in university with a projectionist of the Arte Palazzo Cinema. At the time, Alexandre was 65, and I was 20 or 19. And we had this great friendship, and I recorded hours and hours of video, VHS video with him. And I kept these tapes for 30 years until I worked on Pictures of Ghosts. And that film really brought me to this film because I felt in my heart the power of archives, because I got to spend hours in the editing process of Pictures of Ghosts, seeing myself 35 years younger, talking to Alexandre in the projection booth of the Arte Palazzo Cinema, which is today a ruin. And then it just happened that I wrote Alexandre. It was never planned, I just happened to write him. But it wasn't him, it's a fictional version of Alexandre, of course. But the beautiful thing that happened is when we were preparing for the film, the makeup artist, Carlos Francisco, the actor who plays Alexandre, and Rita, the costume designer, without ever talking to me, because they had seen Pictures of Ghosts, they redid Alexandre. And when I saw him come out of for the test, the camera test, I was really moved because I had never asked them to redo Alexandre, to bring him back to life. He died in 2002. But that's what happened, and I thought it was so beautiful, and then I didn't tell him, let's not do that. And And he is a new movie version of someone I love very much. And so that's one example. Teresa Vittoria was a friend of my mother's. She was actually from Mozambique, and she's a great face from the past. And again, I couldn't help but not channel her into the script. And the great Isabel Zoan plays her in the film. She's Portuguese, but the son of Angola parents. So that's how the characters become who they are. And I have to say that I'm moved by so many great reactions, emotional reactions, even to the characters in this film.
What about that cat? I would ask you this.
I love cats. That's the simple explanation. But I love cats, and I can't really tell you why it has two faces. But I think it's a what?
It's a real cat.
It's a real cat with one face. And it took like 5 months to get the CGI right.
Still today, I don't know the point of that.
But it gets a lot of theory and discussion, which I love to hear outside the screening rooms. And I never answer why. I just like the fact that it has two faces.
One smaller character who's left a big impression is, of course, the adult Fernando. And Wagner, you did such a phenomenal job playing him. When he appears on screen, it's like jaw-dropping for me because you make him completely different from the father. Can you talk about that performance?
That was my last day of shooting, and we knew that we talked about, also because I had to shave my hair and change physically, shave the beard and everything. So that was going to be my last day in the film. So knowing that, I decided not to think about Fernando. I was very into living in the skin of his father. That was my plan, to at some point start to think about the son. In my mind, I was like, I have to live as Armando in order to then play his absence, if you know what I mean. Like, I wanted to be as much as I could in his skin in order to, because Fernando is pretty much the absence of his father. And when I talk about the problem of memory that Brazil has, I'm talking about the collective memory, but of course individually, it affected many Brazilians. Many people disappeared during the dictatorship. But there is another layer in this thing, which is the way Kleber decided to show how Armando died in the film, which is through a newspaper, which I think is very in tune with the rest of the film. He never spoon feeds the audience with explanations like why the cat has two faces. But I find that very tragic, because it's as if his father was killed twice. Killed once and then killed again, when in the headlines of the newspaper it says corrupt teacher or professor is killed. I don't know exactly what it is. They killed his reputation too. So that kid, and for me, when I think about Fernando, I don't think about myself, the character that you see me playing. I think about the boy. I think about that little boy in the car. That kid grew up without his father, but not only that, the kid grew up maybe thinking that his father did something that he wrong, that he didn't actually do. So again, it's fascinating how this is a film about memory, and I have to go back to what I was saying before, the encounter of this film with the reality, with now. Because I love the fact that one of the youngest characters of this film, which is the woman, the young researcher that it's in the future, Flavia. Flavia is one of the youngest characters of the film. She's a Brazilian that lives in the present, and she cares about memory. And what she offers him in that scene, in the form of that pen drive, is a piece of memory. She puts memory on the table and she offers it to him. And he can't deal with it as many other Brazilians can't. But thinking now again, how Brazil is finally dealing with its past, doing the right thing, because we had in Brazil something called the amnesty law. Do you know what this was? In '79, still during the dictatorship, military people, they understood that the military regime was about to fall. It didn't fall because of the guerrillas, like people like Marighella or freedom fighters. It fell because it got rotten. It needed to fall. And then they created this thing called the amnesty law that basically forgave all the torturers and killers and kidnappers and people that did despicable things to civilians in Brazil. So, in my opinion, a man like Jair Bolsonaro, that fascist president that we had, would never exist if it wasn't because of law like that. If you know what I mean? And I like the fact that we are now in Brazil finally doing the right thing. The institutions are working, the democracy is working, and this film finds Brazil in this moment. And there is one character in this film that is a woman, a young Brazilian woman that cares about memory. So hopefully, in the future, Brazilians will be able to deal with our memory in a way that Fernando, my character in that you just mentioned, can't deal with.
Authoritarians come and go, and they return. Dictatorships appear in ever-expanding shapes and forms, and they find wide support as well. You mentioned that you started working on this film during the Bolsonaro presidency. Now Lula is in charge. There is a presidential election coming up later this year, and the president of this country here is a fan of Bolsonaro, and he just removed Maduro from Venezuela. We live in very strange cycles, if not a bottomless spiral. So I appreciate very much that you have this present heart, contemporary time in this film, because the act of looking back is important. In light of what is going on in this world right now, can you talk about archiving, investigating, and remembering the past at this time?
Well, it's particularly in Brazil, because everywhere now we have different versions of so many sides to a story, and truth is not really. In fact, Wagner has just done a play which is an adaptation of Ibsen. The first line in the play is, "The truth is over," right? And I think that making films is one way of establishing the absurdity of life, and also signs of affection. I really believe that films can be violent and brutal, but I also believe that films should have affection and love, because I think that's what part of what life is. We went through some very dark years just recently in Brazil. And the thing that got us through, well, first of all, hope. Brazilians are pretty big on hope, but we're also big on getting together with people we love and, you know, sticking together. And that's probably where the building with Sebastiana comes from. It is true that people like that did exist during the military regime, but I really think that these little pods or maybe cocoons of life where people can actually show respect for each other, even if what's happening outside is much tougher. I think that's something that should be part of the narratives. But I'm thinking of a new film. Of course, it's not the time to discuss it, but I'm thinking of a new film which is very much about the past, but it's really like history keeps repeating itself in the craziest ways. And sometimes we have the benefit of hindsight because of history itself, but I'm even questioning if that is a thing, if that matters these days, because it's almost like we're always going back and making the same mistakes. And this is really scary. I have kids, and this is something that I really think about. I also think that the development of his character, Wagner's character in the film, comes from the fact that I'm a father now. I was not a father when I made my first film. And it's interesting that throughout the history of film, there are many filmmakers, men and women, who have expressed different feelings about before and after having kids, how you see things in a different way. I remember John Carpenter, a filmmaker I greatly admire, who's part of my becoming a cinephile and a filmmaker. He said once that he would never have done the ice cream sequence in Assault on Precinct 13 if he had kids at the time. It's just different things that go through our minds when we write a film, and I think that the different points of view on history, they are an endless source of tension, I think, for developing new stories. And politically, of course, it's always a huge challenge.
I was just thinking now when I was releasing this film called Civil War 3 years ago, I don't know, something like that, 2 years ago. I was asked about, the possibility of a social convulsion in the US, in Brazil, in big democracies in the world, which is like, I think the Civil War was a film about the aftermath of a polarized situation, which we all know. And I remembered saying something like, the fact that, for example, the invasion of we had the same thing in Brazil, like a president that was an election denier, lost the election, empowered his followers to go to the institutions and break shit down and do what they did. Brazil was very fast in finding the financiers, sending people to jail, taking the political powers of Bolsonaro and everything. Not because Brazilian democracy is better or the institutions are quite the opposite, actually. We are a very young democracy. But I think that Brazilians know what a dictatorship is, and the Americans don't. And sometimes I fear that Americans take democracy for granted. And I think that right now, what I see in the second mandate of Donald Trump is that people are really waking up. I can see this going. The institutions are waking up, and the citizens are doing it as well. But what Kleber just mentioned, I was doing this play in Brazil. I wrote a play together with the director, Cristiano Jatei, based on Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, for various reasons, many reasons that I won't take your time to explain. But one of them is that the thing that scares me most nowadays, with the advance of technology especially, is the fact that the truth as we know it is over. So we are all living in a moment where with the decadence of journalism, it's not by chance that autocrats attack journalists, and artists and universities with these things. Because the truth, back then, we had the right, the left, and they would discuss and have furious discussions about a fact. But the fact was what fact? Now there are no facts anymore. There are versions. So we are not living in the same mental space. And that's very scary. And that's what scares me the most. When I did this play, that's what I wanted to talk about. Like, how can we relate to each other? How can we have a connection with other people if we're not living in the same universe? Yeah, that's it.
Earlier, when you arrived, you seemed to project more optimism.
I want to say,
You just woke up.
no, I'm very pessimistic about the present, but I'm very optimistic about the future.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's like the
Yes, it
cat
does.
with two faces.
It's a cat with two faces. It's a